All right, let's jump right in. We hear it all the time, right? AI is coming for our jobs. It's us versus the machines. But what if that's the completely wrong way to look at this? Today, we're going to flip that script and explore a different story, moving from AI competition to actual collaboration. And that really brings us to the big question on everyone's mind. Is AI going to be our partner or a replacement? Seriously, which is it? The answer? Well, it's not so simple. And the choices we're making right now are going to define our future with this tech. So, to get our heads around this, we're going to break it down into 5 parts. We'll start with the basics: AI versus human intelligence. Then we'll dig into what makes us, irreplaceable. After that, things get a little tricky. We'll look at the problem with just sticking a human in the loop. It's more dangerous than you think. Then we'll explore some new rules for accountability. And finally, we'll see how all of this is totally rewriting what career success even looks like. Okay, first things first. Let's start with the absolute basics. Before we can even talk about collaboration, we have to be super clear on what we mean when we say AI versus our own human smarts. They are not the same thing. And that difference? It's everything. You can really think of it as a tale of 2 different kinds of smarts. On one hand, you've got AI. It's an absolute beast at crunching numbers, spotting patterns in massive data sets, and just doing the same structured thing over and over with incredible speed. But then there's us. Human intelligence is playing a totally different game. We bring the creativity, the empathy, that gut feeling for context that AI just doesn't have. So it's not about which one's better. It's about seeing their build for completely different jobs. Okay, so if AI and human intelligence are so different, what's our secret sauce? What are our unique strengths? Because despite all the hype, there are some core human abilities that you just can't automate. Let's dive into the 4 dimensions that make us, well, irreplaceable. And here they are. These are the 4 areas where humans still have the edge. Big time. I mean, think about it. Real creativity, the kind that's rooted in culture and actually connects with people. Or critical judgment, making those tough calls when the data is messy and there's no clear answer. What about empathy? The stuff you need to build actual human relationships. And then there's just physical skill in a messy, unpredictable world, like a plumber figuring out a weird leak under your sink. AI is nowhere near mastering that stuff. And look, this isn't just some fluffy philosophical idea. We've got the numbers to back it up. In healthcare, a whopping 95% of patient care is still driven by humans. In the business world, 90% of really complex change management depends on our judgment. And in creative work, content made by humans can drive up to 25% more engagement. These are real numbers that show just how valuable our uniquely human skills really are. So the solution seems obvious, right? Just keep a human in the loop. Have someone watching over the machine. But here's the twist. It turns out that whole human-in-the-loop idea has some really serious hidden dangers. And it's all because it's based on a completely flawed idea of how our own brains work when we team up with automated systems. Okay, so the first trap is called automation bias. Basically, we're just wired to trust machines way too much. There was this one study, it's wild. They had people in a simulated fire drill. A robot, which had already messed up before, was supposed to guide them out. And guess what? Every single person followed that broken robot towards a blocked exit, instead of using the clearly marked safe one right there. We just automatically trust the machine, even when it's obviously wrong. And then there's the second trap, vigilance decrement. The thing is, our brains are terrible at just passively watching something that works fine most of the time. We tune out. This played a role in the tragic crash of Sriwijaya Air Flight 182. The plane's autothrottle system was super reliable, so the pilots just sort of cognitively disengaged. When it finally malfunctioned, they didn't spot the problem for several critical minutes. By the time the autopilot disengaged, it was just too late to recover. So you take these 2 psychological traps, and they lead to this just devastating legal and ethical problem. It has a really powerful name, the moral crumple zone. Think about it like a car's crumple zone, right? It's designed to absorb the impact of a crash to protect the passengers. Well, in an AI system, the human operator is often put in a position to absorb all the legal and moral impact when the machine screws up. We saw this play out in the fatal Uber self-driving accident back in 2018. The AI system totally failed to identify a pedestrian in the road. But who took the fall? The legal and public focus landed squarely on the human safety driver, who was distracted. Now, her distraction was a textbook case of that vigilance decrement we just talked about. but she was the one charged with negligent homicide. She became the liability sponge, soaking up all the blame for a failure that was baked into the system's design. So if just sticking a human in the loop is so broken, what do? We can't just cross our fingers and hope for the best. We need a new set of rules, a whole new framework that builds real, meaningful accountability into how we work with AI. And to get there, legal experts are proposing this three-pillar framework. It's pretty straightforward. First, the company deploying the AI has a duty to design a system that's genuinely collaborative, not just one with a human babysitter. Second, the developers have to prove their tech is robust and safe. And finally, it's a shared duty. Both parties have to keep monitoring the AI out in the real world and report when things go wrong. It's all about shared responsibility, instead of just pointing the finger at the human operator. Look, this huge shift isn't just about corporate policy or new laws. It hits us all on a really personal level. AI is forcing every single one of us to ask a pretty fundamental question. In this new world, what does being successful in your career even mean anymore? Forever, we've had this pretty rigid idea of career success, kind of like this chart shows. It was always a balancing act, right, between external wins like promotions and paychecks and internal stuff like work-life balance and feeling fulfilled. This was the classic career ladder we were all told to climb. But then along comes generative AI, and it's a massive disruptor in the workplace. It's automating tasks we thought were safe, it's creating demand for brand new skills, and it's basically taking that old straight-line career ladder and just blowing it up. The game is changing, and the rules for winning are changing with it. So here's a much more modern way to look at it. AI's rise directly influences how our workplaces operate. Those changes then reshape how we even define success for ourselves. And that new definition? It guides how we develop our careers. It's not a ladder anymore. It's more like a feedback loop, where we're constantly adapting to new tech and new demands. So what are the new markers of success? Well, recent research with folks just starting their careers shows a really clear shift. It's way less about your job title and much more about how adaptable you are. It's less about finding one stable job for life and more about being a continuous learner. Success is now being measured by our human-centric skills, creativity, empathy, and by our demand for more autonomy, more flexibility, and our ability to use these incredibly powerful tools ethically. But here's a really key point. This doesn't mean we're throwing out the old values entirely. We're not abandoning the need for a decent income or a sense of stability. Instead, what we're seeing is a coexistence, a blend, where these new adaptive values are getting mixed in right alongside the traditional ones. And this quote just nails the new mindset perfectly. Success in the Gen AI era is not a fixed destination, but an ongoing journey shaped by external disruptions and internal adaptation. It's not about arriving somewhere anymore. It's all about the journey of adapting to a world that never stops changing. So when you put it all together, the picture becomes pretty clear. The future isn't AI versus humans. It is, or at least it has to be, a partnership. But that partnership isn't just going to happen on its own. It has to be designed carefully, with real accountability and with a deep, deep understanding of what actually makes us human in the first place. And that leaves us with one last big question to chew on. In a world full of intelligent machines that can do almost anything, what's the one thing you can do that they can't? So I'll leave you with this. What uniquely human value will you create?